Good morning, everyone. My name is Carolyn Hart Bennett, and today I'm going to read Chapter 6 from my second book, Seven Sisters, Overland. Eleanor wondered if she needed to stay behind with Linda May while the others went to enjoy Niagara Falls. But when she broached the idea, Linda May quickly volunteered that she was feeling much better and wanted to stretch her legs for the baby's sake and walk around to see everything. When the Saints reached the park, there were hundreds of tourists walking around and dozens of tourist tents and barkers vying for clientele. In the center of the park, lining the edge of the river that was flowing to the falls, there was a bandstand surrounded by rows of benches where tourists could sit and watch various musicians and singers come and go all afternoon. It was a very festive atmosphere. The Saints were in awe of the beautiful setting. The sisters tried to stay together for a while, but were drawn this way and that. Finally, Eleanor said, "Caroline, you and Linda May watch out for each other. Lavinia and I will be companions, and Susanna can keep hold of the twins. That way we can see 3 times as many things, and we can tell each other about what we saw when we get back to the campground." "Excellent idea," said Caroline. With that, the sisters spread out arm in arm and began wandering through the booths and displays looking for distractions and food to buy to take with them on the train. The Saints soon intermingled with the other tourists who were milling around. Munching on small round loaves of bread with butter and molasses in the middle, Lavinia pulled Eleanor over to a large stage that was set up with 6 tall posters along the back. There they stood with the crowd, looking up at the impresario who had the group's rapt attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, let me repeat for you newcomers that the great Blondin, otherwise known as the Little Wonder, will be performing a never-before-attempted feat right here at Niagara Falls. Starting tomorrow at 3 o'clock, he will be crossing this gorge 160 feet above the water for a record distance of 1,100 feet. He will cross from the Canadian side to the American side on a 2-inch wide tightrope. Yes, my friends, you won't want to miss this spectacular spectacle. He will not only cross the gorge tomorrow, but he will cross it the same time every day for the entire week." A ripple of astonished laughter and clapping spread through the crowd. Some were amazed at his bravery. Some were appalled by his stupidity. "Yes, indeed, there is no doubt this is a dangerous stunt, and as you can see by these posters, the great Blondin will not walk the tightrope in the normal way. Each time he crosses, he will be making it as difficult for himself as he can. This poster here," he said, pointing with a long tapered stick, "is from the Crystal Palace in London, where he crossed the tightrope carrying his own business manager piggyback." The crowd laughed with glee. "This poster was at Edgbaston Reservoir in Birmingham, where he is trundling a wheelbarrow across the tightrope. And here he is blindfolded with his feet encased in baskets." The audience oohed and awed in disbelief. "Here's a poster from his performance in Belfast, where he sat down midway across the tightrope and cooked himself an omelet. You never know what the great Blondin will do. You'll just have to be in attendance to find out." "It would be so marvelous to see him," Lavinia sighed. "It's disappointing being one day early," lamented Eleanor, "but we did get to see the posters. I guess we'll just have to imagine the rest." Meanwhile, Susanna and the twins went in another direction until they were in the midst of a farmer's market at the far end of the tourist stands. They were terribly hungry and hoped to fill their stomachs so they could enjoy the rest of their time at the falls. In the market were stands with all kinds of fruits and vegetables displayed. The bread stands had all sizes of loaves and many bricks of cheese. There were even large cans of milk close by for thirsty customers. In addition to food, there were stands selling every item a traveler might need or want to make their journey easier. The twins looked up and down until one stand caught their eyes. It displayed red fruit in wooden crates. The cheerful color beckoned them. "Phoebe, look at those apples," said Fanny, drooling. "Have you ever seen anything so perfectly red?" Phoebe looked up at her older sister. "Please, Susanna, can we buy one? Do we have enough money?" Susanna likewise had spotted the beautiful fruit. "I haven't had an apple for so long I can't remember," she said. They do look delicious. Let's buy 3 of them." The twins were thrilled with this decision and skipped over to the stand. Bending over the wooden crate, they each pointed at their desired choice. They could hardly hold still while the saleswoman put the 3 prizes into Susanna's hands. "That will be 1 cent each," she said with a smile. "Are they juicy?" Susanna questioned. "Oh, yes, quite juicy." Susanna paid the 3 cents, and they moved away from the stand a few paces. The twins were anxious and bouncing with urgency for their apples. Susanna prolonged their agony a little longer. "I love the first bite," she said, "hearing the crisp crunch and feeling the tart, tangy juice as it trickles down my throat. It is glorious." "Susanna, can we please have our apples?" begged Fanny. Susanna doled them out to the girls and admired her own. Not being able to wait another minute, all 3 took a huge bite at the same time. But oh! The tempting red apples dissolved into juice and seeds that squirted down the fronts of their bodice. "Mine is rotten," whispered Phoebe. Fanny started choking and spitting. "Oh, what kind of apple is this?" Marcus, who had been keeping an eye on Susanna and the twins, quickly came to their aid. The expressions on their faces were skewed and horrified. The saleswoman was trying to stifle her cackling in the background. "Sisters, what is the matter with your tomatoes?" he said as he got closer. "I'll tell you what's the matter," said Susanna. "We weren't expecting tomatoes, that's what. We were expecting apples." Marcus began to laugh. "You thought those were apples?" "They looked like apples from a distance," said Fanny as she tried to wipe the mess off her chest. "How are we supposed to know? They need to put a sign on their stand," said Fanny, looking at the smirking saleswoman. "I don't know if I can ever eat another tomato in my life," said Susanna. "Come with me, you 3. I know for a fact that there are apples at the other end of the market." Off they went and followed Marcus's lead. When they arrived at the stand, Marcus generously offered to purchase 4 big red apples and then led the Watts sisters to the benches by the grandstand. Their spirits immediately improved as they took bites and savored the very crisp and juicy real apples. Soon they were chewing in time to the band music. They had never heard the songs that were being played, but their melodies were jaunty and very carefree in nature. The saints were used to staid hymns and English airs. Everyone within earshot clapped after each song. Then the band leader came forward and announced through his megaphone, "We will now perform a medley of songs from our American neighbor, the renowned Stephen Foster. We will play Camptown Races and end with his latest popular hit, Oh, Susanna." "Can we stay and listen to a song about you, Susanna?" begged Phoebe. "I'm certainly interested in hearing it," said Marcus, grinning. "I didn't know there was a song with my name in it. Yes, let's stay. I'm curious to hear it too." "Good, because I'm not quite through eating my apple yet," said Fanny, licking the juice that was running down her arm. As the band played the bouncy introduction to the first song, a man with some black paint on his face stepped forward. "Why does that man have his face painted black?" "He's called a minstrel," explained Marcus. "I've never seen one myself, but I've heard about them from my father, who lived in Missouri for a number of years. They dress up like Negroes and sing funny songs about slavery and plantations." "Why don't they just let the Negroes sing the songs?" asked Fanny. "You haven't been around slavery very much, have you?" said Marcus. "I never saw a Negro person until we got to the London docks to board the Amazon." The singing caused them to turn their attentions to the stage as 4 girls in knee-length dresses came running out to the sides of the singer. As he sang, the dancers picked up the front of their skirts and wagged them back and forth, revealing their ruffled petticoats and pantaloons. Susanna was aghast. "De Camptown ladies sing dis song, doo-dah, doo-dah. De Camptown racetrack 5 miles long, oh, doo-dah day. Gwine to run all night, gwine to run all day. I'll bet my money on de bobtail nag, somebody bet on de bay." The dancers finished the chorus by turning their backs to the audience and sweeping their arms through their skirts, which in turn lifted their skirts up over their heads to reveal their derrieres. The 3 sisters were frozen in their seats. "Did you see what I just saw?" Fanny said to Phoebe, beginning to giggle. Susanna tried to recover the situation. "Elder Fielding, what does doodah mean?" "Oh, that's just an American expression, I guess," Marcus chuckled. "What about gwine?" That just means going to. I see, said Susanna. They draw their words out and chew them. Exactly. As the song continued, the spectators and sisters all joined in on the doodahs and clapped enthusiastically at the end. There were even hoops and whistles, which seemed a bit irreverent, but then again, the song and the dance were pretty irreverent. Maybe we should go and see something else, suggested Susanna. Oh, no, said Fanny. Your song is next. Let's stay and hear it. The problem is, I'm not sure what we'll hear or see, Susanna said, giving Marcus a look. The minstrel picked up his banjo and came back to the center stage, plucking an introduction. Then he sang, I came from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. I's going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. It rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry. The sun so hot I froze to death, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with my banjo on my knee. The audience clapped wildly. This American song was evidently very popular in Canada. What a funny song, said Susanna. It rained all night. The day I left, the weather it was dry. That doesn't make a lot of sense. What about the sun so hot I froze to death? Asked Fanny. It's just a nonsense song, Marcus said as he gave Susanna a quick wink, causing her to beam with pleasure. Caroline and Linda May's travels took them inside a large tent that had displays and drawings of how the suspension bridge had been constructed across the Niagara Falls. They were still in amazement that a bridge could even be built across such a watery abyss. Do you ladies have any questions about the bridge? Said a gentleman in his early 30s as he approached them. I have just one word, said Caroline. How? The man chuckled and then began to explain. About 16 years ago, the government of Upper Canada and the state of New York commissioned Charles Eller Jr. to construct a bridge between the narrowest parts of the Canadian and American shores. But first they had to establish a link across the 800-foot gorge. It occurred to Mr. Elliott, that kite flying might be the answer. So a contest was held with a $5 gold piece as the prize for anyone who could fly a kite across the gorge. A young American boy on the Canadian shoreline, won the contest on the second day of flying his kite in the direction of the prevailing winds, across to the American side, where his kite was then tied to a tree. Then a light cord was attached to the string and pulled across. Next came a heavier cord, then a rope, and finally a wire cable composed of several strands. That was the beginning of the new bridge. That's incredible, gushed Caroline. That little boy must be famous. Well, he's not famous, but he does have a little tent by the falls where he explains how the suspension bridge was built. Caroline's mouth flew open. Oh my goodness, Alinda May, this is the boy who flew the kite. Alinda May wasn't exactly sure what Caroline said, but she had been looking at the drawings and noticed a boy with a kite in one hand and a $5 gold piece in the other. Remarkable, she exclaimed, hoping she had used the word correctly. Let me shake your hand, Caroline said, shaking his hand. What is your name? Holman Walsh, he said, a little red-faced. You are to be congratulated. What started as a kite on a string turned out to be this famous bridge. That is unbelievable. Well, the early bridge was just a metal basket that resembled two high-backed rocking chairs facing each other, which were pulled back and forth. He explained that a footbridge 3 feet wide was built next, allowing people to cross for a fee of 25 cents. The bridge was then expanded to accommodate horse and a carriage, and eventually a German bridge designer and engineer named John A. Roebling came to Niagara Falls and built a second bridge with a double-deck construction for rail traffic as well. I just don't understand how it can hold something as heavy as a locomotive, said Caroline. Mr. Walsh led the saints to another table. The second bridge was far superior to the first one. A number of guy wires from the bridge to the cliff wall counteracted the effects of the wind. The first locomotive that crossed the bridge weighed 23 tons and crossed at a speed of 8 miles per hour. There was only a deflection of 3.5 inches at the center of the span. That's extraordinary, Caroline marveled. Now it is world famous, and you can say your train was one of 50 trains that crossed the suspension bridge this week. Caroline and Linda May had been thoroughly entertained and thanked Mr. Walsh profusely as they left to find some sustenance before they had to return to the campground. The Saints loved their time viewing the many displays and booths that were set up all over the large park that bordered the boiling and churning river that was making its way to the precipice of the falls. Most visitors took the opportunity to stroll the entire length of the pathway from one end of the river to the canyon rim and look over the safety rail into the foaming water. When the Saints returned to the campground after their glorious afternoon, they were full of smiles and chatter as they related their experiences to each other. President Tippett could hardly calm them down enough to get their nightly prayer meeting started. Brothers and sisters, sometimes the Lord works in mysterious ways. We thought we were unduly put upon when we had to ride in cattle cars today, but if we hadn't ridden on them, my counselors and I wouldn't have had to bargain for coach cars, which weren't due until tomorrow. Hence, we were able to spend more time here seeing these wondrous sights. As Alma explained to Korihor, the Antichrist in the Book of Mormon, all things denote there is a God, yea, even the earth, and all things that are upon the face of it do witness there is a supreme Creator. This natural wonder truly testifies there is a God. Everyone agreed they had spent an extraordinary afternoon enjoying God's awe-inspiring creation, Niagara Falls. The Saints were generous in their prayers of thanksgiving that evening. It was a perfect night under the stars, and thoughts of their rain-drenched condition the night before had all but vanished from their memories. The roaring of the falls in the background lulled the Saints into a pleasant and very sound sleep. That's the end of chapter 6. Over and out.